Game day. Welcome everybody to the next episode of Chiefs Focus First and 10 Live, the Shut the Hell Up and Enjoy the Ride show. You are here with JP and Quentin. What's up, brother?
Hey man, I'm hoping that by the end of the show, everybody who's listening, all the Chiefs fans, can feel better about Harrison Butker, because I've got some numbers in front of me. I've done a little bit of research here, and I think by the end of the show, every Chiefs fan out there will be able to take a little sigh of relief, and we'll be able to feel better about Harrison Butker, because I definitely do, and I think that this is going to be a good show. We're going to feel good about Harrison Butker, and we've got a good team coming in Seattle, but we're going to feel better. Kingdom's going to be better.
Yeah,
it's fine.
I agree. The one thing I am just fucking so frustrated with is all of the talk and the banter and everybody turning everything into what it's not. Dustin Colquitt made a very, very valid comment. It was extremely valid. I actually tweeted it out during the game that the ball was facing right. I seen it. It was leaning forward and facing right. That could be a problem. It doesn't necessarily mean that Townsend's doing something wrong. It could be any part of the snap, if the ball is coming in wrong, if it's a little late. Also, not to mention the fact that Butker has actually shortened his steps. So he's dropped down from a 3-step to a 1 or a 2-step because of his ankle. I don't think his ankle is causing as much issues as everybody wants to make it, or as everybody, I guess, assumes. Or if they think, other people assume that Butker's just a problem and he sucks, like we've seen a million times, it's time to get a new kicker. Go out there and find me another fucking kicker that is good, that is on the market right now and as good as Harrison Butker. And Quentin's going to give you all the numbers here pretty soon, but I want you to find me somebody right now on the street that can go out and kick as good as him. Because you won't. We tried that. 2 different kickers, neither one of them were any good. One of them couldn't hit the broadside of a fucking barn. So everybody's bitching and whining about this situation. And it's no different than what they're whining about with the defense. Jesus Christ, we have rookies all over the place. You got to expect some kind of lull. It's not going to be perfect in every game. The number 1 defense in the league, we scored an ignorant amount of points on. Every top 5 defense we have scored on. Just because our defense allows a few extra points here and there doesn't mean shit. We are still winning football games. We're still 11-3. With the Broncos, the Raiders, the Chargers, I can name off 9, 10 other teams that would love to be 11-3 that are 3-11. Hell yeah. But we're bitching and complaining because we're not perfect in every single way. Well, find me one freaking team that is. Find me one. Because there's nobody out there that's perfect. Nobody. But yet, everybody in this freaking city seems to want to bitch, whine, and complain about things that they couldn't do if they wanted to in a freaking Girl Scout group. And yet, everybody's a genius when it comes to this. I would love for you to go out there and kick a 20-yard field goal. Yes, he's paid to do this. But there are other people who are paid to do certain things to help him get to that point, to where he makes a 62-yarder. And everybody wants to bitch and complain. It's so frustrating, man, to listen to all these armchair coaches talk shit on Twitter and every place else. I have no doubt and there's nothing in my mind that says, I don't know why Thornhill said, shut the hell up and we do everything for you guys and all you do is bitch and complain. I completely understand it. I completely understand why he said that. Why would you be so pissed about an 11-3 team that is freaking new? New wide receivers, a second-year starting offensive line, 5 rookies on the defense. Yes, we're having some issues on special teams. Again, a bunch of rookies on special teams. The kicking situation is something that everybody's going to have to get the fuck over, because it will fix itself. And Butker wasn't trying to cause animosity. Colquitt cause animosity or anything else. He was simply stating a fact that anybody with a freaking eyeballs can see if they understand the game and can watch film. I watched it and tweeted it. You can look on Chiefs Focus Twitter page right now. It's out there. It was facing the right. The laces were facing the right. The ball trails that direction. It's a routine, just like when you get up and you take a piss in the morning, it's a routine. And if the routine is broken, there's things that'll cause problems. And it's a repetitive motion every single time. Whether it be a snap or whether it be the hold, a fraction of a second can cause problems. An ankle injury that never healed can cause a little bit of issues. And if you're trying to adjust, and those guys need to adjust to you, they need to adjust to you. Whether it be because of your step count or the position you're putting yourself in when you kick the ball. And not to mention the fact that both of those guys had to go back and learn other kickers while Butker was out. They had to learn their tendencies and the way they like to kick the ball and their drops and their step count and everything else that goes along with it. Stop bitching. It's stupid to bitch and complain and cut these players down. They are doing everything they can to get to a Super Bowl. And all we hear is, during that game, I swear to God, the game that poor Juan Thornhill had a bad game for the first time the entire season, and everybody said, cut him, he sucks. That was all over Twitter. Then he comes back, and in the next game, he has one play got by him in the first series, and after that, he was lights out. And they started again. Oh, God, he sucks. Why is he on the field? Blah, blah, blah. And then afterwards, all those jackoffs didn't say a word. Juan Thornhill had a great game. Oh, whoa. Good. You can't, it's one way, you can't be one way or the other. Either be a fan or go watch golf. Go watch a tennis match. Go listen to bullshit about Trump for all I care. But be human about shit. I understand you're passionate, but don't sit here and cut people down because you think you know. Because unless you've been on that field, unless you've done it, and you've done it at an elite level, you don't know it. It's that simple.
And here's what I'll say, is I think that, we talked about this, the phrase fan is short for fanatic. I think that, after a game, you're pretty emotional. I do have my concerns about the defense, and we'll get into that. But I agree with the overall message that, Harrison Butker, we're not going to be able to replace him, and that he is better than what a lot of people are thinking. It took me some time to really, come to this conclusion that, I'm not worried about Butker anymore. Definitely after the game, I was wondering, what's going on here? What is the problem? And I think it is a couple of things, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. But I'm no longer concerned with Butker overall. I think that he's actually been pretty good this season, and I'm happy to run through the numbers here and talk about it, because I really do think that people are going to feel better after I run through this. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to start running through these numbers, JP.
Do what you got to do, bro.
All right.
Do everything you got. I had to get that off my chest.
So let's just run through some of these numbers real quick. So, Harrison Butker in 2022, remember, he missed about a month of the season because of that ankle injury. He is 7 of 7 with field goals from 20 to 29 yards. He is from 30 to 39 yards. He is 4 of 5. From 40 to 49, he is 2 for 3. So for field goals under 50 yards, he is rocking 86% of the field goals. About 90% is what is considered elite. And, with one more, he could be 86%. It's just, how the math works out. He's not going to get exactly at 90. So right there, he's considered that under 50, he's an elite kicker. His problem has become his from 50 plus. He is 3 of 6 with 50 yards plus, and unfortunately for Butker, 2 of those 50-plus yard field goals have come in game-winning situations, both in Houston and against the Bengals. So I think in the back of our minds here that when we think about Harrison Butker missing field goals or becoming worse, unfortunately a couple of those misses have come at the worst time. And I think that sort of gets ingrained into your mind as to some of those things that have been missed. He has missed 3 PATs this year, okay? So those are the numbers for Butker. I thought, let's take a moment and talk about one of the best kickers in the NFL, and Justin Tucker, arguably the best kicker in the NFL and in NFL history. What has he done this season, and how can we compare the two? Justin Tucker is 8 for 8, so 100% from 20 to 29, and 10 for 10 from 30 to 39, okay? So how does that compare to Butker? Basically, Butker has 1 miss from that 30 to 39, while Justin Tucker is 100% from those distances. All right? You still follow me, JP?
Yep, I'm here.
Harrison Butker has 1 miss from the 40 to 49. So does Justin Tucker. And he's only tried 2 more times than Butker has.
Yeah.
Justin Tucker has 4 misses from 50 plus. And, he's not getting ripped apart the way Harrison Butker is. The other part that people complain about is that Harrison Butker misses a lot of PATs. He has 3 this year, and Justin Tucker has 1 missed PAT. All right? So, if we're comparing literally the best kicker in NFL history to Harrison Butker, obviously Justin Tucker has better numbers. But it's not by much.
No.
It really isn't there's not by much. It's just, unfortunately, the numbers, the misses that he has have come in critical situations, which is a whole situation of its own. But right there, seeing that difference made me feel a lot better.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
If we look at another comparable kicker, not literally the best in NFL history, but just a really good kicker in the NFL right now, Evan McPherson of the Bengals, right? Last year he went on that playoff run where he was making everything was automatic, and he's regarded as one of the best kickers in the league. Evan McPherson has kicked from 40 to 49 9 times, and he has missed it 3 separate times. So if you compare while he has a larger sample size than Harrison Butker, they are hitting at the exact same percentage of 66% of the time.
Yeah.
Evan McPherson also has 3 missed PATs this year. So Harrison Butker is on the same mark as Evan McPherson, who is considered one of the best kickers in the NFL. Harrison Butker is still one of the best kickers in the NFL. He has gone through he had an injury, and when he was asked about that today in the locker room, he did not straight up say, he sort of avoided the question of, when he was asked if he was fully healthy, he avoided the question. Mm-hmm. So I do think that there is some validity in that ankle is still bothering him.
It is. I mean, we've been told that. So
Harrison Butker is still a great kicker. He is a productive kicker, and I don't know about you, JP, but just running through some of those numbers there, it makes me feel a lot better that just looking at it and seeing that he is still on par with some of the best kickers in the NFL. Do you have any questions about my numbers I brought up?
You know what? I don't, because and if any fans do, jump in. We would love to hear what you have to say. But we already knew this. It's sad that we have to explain to people things that are very, I guess it's understandable to a degree that we have to explain it, but it's just sad that people go to the extremes that they do to say the things that they say about these players. They've never been in their shoes. And I'm so tired of hearing they get paid to do this, they get paid to do that. So whatever job you have, you get paid to do it, and if you make a mistake, you expect everybody and their brother just to slam you? Everybody that works with you slams you all day long because you made a mistake? Or you had an issue? Or you went into a lull? Or, whatever the problem is? It makes no sense. I would fully understand if, he was Amendola that missed everything, couldn't hit broadside of a barn, but he's not. And people still forget that that injury is not 100%. We know that. We've been told that. But yet, people still want to slam him. Who cares about this? He's paid to do a job, so who cares? That's what I heard on Twitter.
I'm not. I don't want to take. I think Twitter has its upsides where you can kind of get the feeling of a lot of fans, but I think also people just take to Twitter to complain and to bitch and moan for to a certain extent. And like I said, I do think that there is some gray area here. Like I said after the game, I was like, what's going on with Butker here? And looking at the numbers, though, it makes me feel a lot better about Butker. I do think that some of the problem is that he does have such a smaller sample size than years previous, and so when you've only tried 3 field goals from 40 to 49, unlike in previous years, you're rocking a 66% from that clip. But if by the end of the season he tries a couple more and makes it, that's going to go up, and you won't be able to. It'll just look better on paper. So I just think that this is one of the areas where you can look at the numbers and get to a solid conclusion that Harrison Butker is still one of the best kickers in the NFL. We know what it's like trying to find a replacement kicker. We tried to do that a couple of times when he was injured, and it's not, the production is simply not there. There are not people sitting on the couch who are just going to come in and be elite kickers here in the NFL. No. And I think that we can take a breath and just say that Harrison Butker is still a good kicker.
He is as close to elite as you can get in this league. And again, we've tried this, we failed. When he got injured, and when I say this with every bit of, I guess, truthfulness and validity. We have got so much depth in every position, but we didn't really have it in the kicker position. So that goes to show you that when one of the best goes down, you have to have somebody that can fill their shoes. Luckily, we have the team that was able to still win with a terrible kicker. And Butker is far from that. When he was down, he was down. He's still not 100%. He's probably not going to be 100% until he sits a complete off season. It's that simple. So everybody could just get off his back and move forward.
Yeah, one of the things last year, Chris Jones, for example, he had that wrist injury, right? Mm-hmm. And Chris Jones just simply wasn't able to compete at his highest level. But you weren't going to find a guy in free agency, on the couch or anybody on your roster that 80% of Chris Jones is still better than 100% of a lot of players. And I think that's true with Butker. 80% or 90% wherever Butker is in terms of that injury recovery is still better than a lot of kickers, even in the NFL. So I think that context matters. The Dustin Colquitt, if you don't know what's going on with Dustin Colquitt, he sort of went on a media tour yesterday and has talked about how, Butker is not the only person in charge of kicking the ball. Yeah, he's the guy that actually makes contact, but it's a series of guys. It's the long snapper, the holder, and the kicker. And so he said that Tommy Townsend seems to, he isn't being, he's not as good of a holder as he could be. So against the Texans, we were trying to get that game-winning field goal, so we didn't have to go into overtime. The laces of the ball are supposed to face towards the posts, right? Straight on. That way you don't want to kick the laces. If you've seen Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, you know that. The laces were actually facing to the right, and what happened is when he kicked that ball, the ball ended up turning towards the right. And, because physics, you want the ball perfectly straight facing the goalpost. So, I think it's hard after that example. I don't think that all of this is on Butker and not all of it is on the injury. I think there's a lot of things that are going on here.
So many mechanics involved.
There really is. And it's sort of like, the kicking team The kicking team's like your Wi-Fi. If you don't have to think about it, it's working. The moment you have to think about it, that's when you have problems with it. And I think the long snapper and the holder are exactly like that.
I agree. I 100% agree with you. I think that's the problem with when it comes to people that have never played the game or played it at an elite level. They don't understand the mechanics behind what goes into just, I mean, everybody says, oh, he's just a kicker. It's not just being a kicker. There's a lot of mechanics that go in behind it, and there's three people that get you to that point. It's the snapper, the holder, and yourself. And then you got to take into wind. You got to take into consideration wind. So many other factors. If it's cold, if the altitude's different, if it's warm, there's so many things that you have to take into consideration. And honestly, I mean, it's sad, but we don't want to be that toxic fan base that just slams everybody because they think they know better. If you were that good, everybody'd be doing it. If everybody was a great kicker or a great safety or an elite quarterback or whatever the case may be, everybody'd be doing it. But there's a reason why there's only a handful of people that get picked every year at the combine. I mean, it's pretty simple to figure out why there's only so many people that make it in the draft and how many of them stay on a team after the draft. So I think everybody just needs to relax. It had me very frustrated. I had to actually get away from all social media, which in my opinion is a necessary evil anyway for our business, but I had to completely get away from it for a little bit because it was really pissing me off. And in fact, on my drive, I didn't really look at it much. I got angry when I did. So I just let it go. It wasn't worth it. Let's move on because honestly that part is over with. If people don't understand it now, they're never going to get it. So there's nothing we can do about that. And as far as I'm concerned, any players that listen to this show, I hope and pray to God that you don't pay attention to the 10%ers out there that want to run their mouths because they really don't know shit.
I will say this. I do think that people are, trying to explain to them, and that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to take my football knowledge and what I've figured out, what I've learned, and sort of just express the things that I'm seeing and why I think there are, whether it's pros or cons, the good and the bad of football, and specifically the Chiefs, and why I think certain things are happening. And I do think that, I try my best to do that, and I think that this is a very reasonable argument to make that despite what we've seen out of Butker, and I think unfortunately for him, two of those missed 50-yard field goals have been in win it or go home games, or win and lose situations. And while we didn't lose against the Texans because of overtime, it was an opportunity to end the game right there, and there was that miss. So when you have those misses, they sort of stick in your brain a little bit longer because they're more impactful moments. So,
and that's understandable. But then you look at games like, last year, in fact, we could bring up 6 drop passes that and 3 of them turned into interceptions from Tyreek, and yet nobody said fire Tyreek. Nobody said it's time to get a new wide receiver. It's always they pick and choose. They base it off of what the media says and what they think is a big name. And granted, people don't take into consideration that a lot of our players are 7th round draft picks, came off of another practice squad, were being shunned, and yet they're shining right now. I mean, Jerick McKinnon is 30 years old and he's playing like he's 22. Been on 2 other teams prior to being here. We didn't hear anybody last year saying, let's dump Jerick McKinnon because he's only played a few snaps. It's just frustrating when you see it, and then as soon as they do something good, that shit gets deleted, and then it's, oh, I love him, he's great. Look, man, stick to what your story is. If you want to bitch and complain, and be that person the rest of your life. If you don't, then understand the game. And if you don't understand it, don't call the players out on a public platform. Because that's what they do in other cities that players don't want to be in. And we want to continue to bring in good players. We
Yeah,
want to bring
and
in players from college. You know?
and Chiefs Kingdom is already under enough, let's say, negative
Yeah,
media activity on social media right now.
yeah.
Um,
I mean,
you
that's
know,
only the third. Let's go into that really quick, and that's not going to be a long conversation. For everybody that hasn't heard, I'm sure you have.
I don't know how you haven't heard about it because
Yeah.
everybody's talking about it.
Yeah, Chiefsaholic was arrested for robbing a bank.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, I'll say that for now.
Allegedly, my journalistic integrity inside me says
Yes,
I don't want to get
allegedly.
sued by anybody, so
Exactly.
allegedly.
There was other rumors going around about other situations with the law, allegedly. So, what I will say about this is, when you follow people because of certain reasons, and you really think you know somebody, you may not. Because this is now the third, if I'm not mistaken, super fan, if you want to call them super fan, that has either gotten in trouble, banned from Arrowhead, something. You know,
Allegedly.
one of them, allegedly. You know, let's keep that in there because we are business. It is what it is. It happens. We can't really move on from that. We just have to, you know, just forget about it and say, okay, whatever happens, happens. We can't control what people do. All we can say is, you know, there's good and bad in every city and every state, every county in this country, every place in the world. So if somebody decided to be a bank robber, if allegedly, to afford his you know, away games and home games and all the other things that he did. I mean, somebody apparently was on a Spaces that was close to him that stated a few things about him that apparently makes this all sound valid, allegedly. So we just don't know until the courts decide what is real and what isn't. I guess it's strange to me that the actual picture that they saw him in the bank, he was wearing his wolf mask.
I don't think that that's a real. I think that's somebody else. I think that's a picture from another incident that happened. I don't think that was him.
With him or with somebody else?
With somebody else. I think that was another. But
that I didn't know. I mean,
I
was
think
driving,
that
so.
I heard that was a different situation with a different individual from like 2016. But yeah, it's just as long as that lady with the Rock'em Sock'em puppets that is at each game. I mean, if something happens with her, I think the word superfan will now have a negative connotation forever.
Yeah,
okay?
If we find out that she is at Macy's shoplifting, I am going to
I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it.
But anyway, I talked to a source in New York about the situation with Carl Scheffers, I should say, or Shitters, or Betters, or whatever else we want to call him. They are going to try and figure something out. They seen the, I guess the atrocity we will call a game and how it was called. Not only the first time, but now. Honestly, it was very petty in the second game. And that, I think, was just him being petty because he had to have armed guards to leave Arrowhead after the first time they screwed up. So, from what I understand, they are trying to fix this issue with the refs at this point. They're trying to come up with a solution. I gave my 2 cents the way I give my 2 cents. Probably didn't like it much, but whatever. Don't give a shit. My opinion is they need to get rid of all these old bastards and move in people that know how to, that want to do it and let people play the game. And if you can't do that, then start making them do press conferences like we've been saying for the last 7 years on this show. Make them do a press conference, explain why they missed that call, and then have New York explain why they didn't follow up with it after the fact. And then if they missed one, fine them, just like they fine a player or a coach for going and saying something in a presser about a ref.
Yeah, that really irks me that players and coaches can get fined by the league for talking about a play, because that does happen. I mean, it's on the football field. Why are they not allowed to talk about something on the football field? That frustrates me to no end, because I think that if refs were held accountable by players and coaches, from press conferences, I think that would help. go further, because you would have to be held accountable by people who are in the situation, who know more about the game, and I think that would go a long way into helping sort of continue the improvement of the game.
Well, here's the
There,
problem with that, Quentin. Here's the only problem with that. If the coaches and the players were to go out and do what they should do, or they exactly what you said, and speak their mind about what goes on in the game, if the NFL doesn't back up the coaches and the players, it's all for nothing, and the rest could just be a complete jack off the next time they see him. Similar to what Sheffers did this time.
would you like me to bring up some
10 penalty games, the only 2 from the exact same crew.
And through week 15, the Chiefs have picked up the 6th fewest penalties per game.
Correct.
So they've been one of the cleanest. They've been playing some of the cleanest version of football, except for the 2 times the same reffing crew has come in. And this is the same ref crew and the same guy that nearly cried at Arrowhead against the Raiders.
Yeah.
On that Monday night game.
I've never heard somebody so scared. I mean, the guy was stuttering. I mean,
There's
he
no
was
foul
stuttering.
on the play.
Yeah. My mommy, where's my mommy?
I mean, literally, it's nearly double. The Chiefs average 5.1 flags per play.
Yeah.
And they've done it, and they flagged us at 10 times on Sunday and 11 times against the Raiders on that Monday night game. I mean, so it is as close to double as you can get. And this isn't a one-off. This has happened in years past too.
Yes, it has. And the sad part is that, and I don't want anybody to think this is specifically on the Chiefs, because there are other teams out there that get the same amount of penalties depending on who they are. So they will rape another team just as badly. What bothers me is the inconsistency between the calls that are made against the Chiefs versus the team that they're playing. That's what bothers me the most. When you see Mahomes get head slammed into the ground, Philip Rivers, I always say Philip Rivers. Justin Herbert was a runner when he decided to take off and got hit, and they immediately called a helmet-to-helmet on it. But you can take Mahomes, pick him up, body slam him to the ground basically, or throw him to the ground and let his head slam off the freaking, what's up, Thiz? And slam his head off the ground, and that's okay. But if it would have been the other way around, I guarantee you that wouldn't have flown. We went back and looked at all 22 film of that game, and the Raiders game, as a matter of fact, and honestly, it was so lopsided, it was sickening. It was sickening. And it's not just the Chiefs. There are other teams that crew specifically goes against. And this is a trend that they are seeing in the New York office. I will say that from the person that I spoke with. So when you have a guy of his stature and his time in the NFL that is being such a freaking 2-year-old, it only leads people to 2 conclusions. 1, he's a petty little bitch. Or 2, he's betting on games. That's what the public perception is of this individual and his crew. I thought his crew was bad last year when they actually got suspended for doing stupid shit during 2 games. The 17 Bengals game and the Raiders playoff game. And then a guy gets suspended because of allegedly betting. So now we got Sheffers involved that's doing, and this is not just this isn't the first year he's done this. This has been going on for a while. He has an issue when it comes to the Chiefs. He has an issue when it comes to 4 or 5 other elite teams, or maybe I should say prior elite teams in the league. If one of our players complains and maybe they say it the wrong way to him, then it's all hell from that point on. And it's the same with other teams in the league. They have been through the exact same thing. It's not just us with that crew. So when I look at this, I think just like every other intelligent human being would think, okay, either he's a petty little person that really doesn't understand the impact that he's making, or betting is causing a lot of problems.
Here's the big problem. Here's the big scope. I am not the person that immediately jumps to the ref and complains about the reffing of a game, right? My whole philosophy is you should never put yourself in a position where a ref can cause you to lose a game. And you should never put the end of the game in somebody else's hands. You should try your best to maintain that throughout the whole game to avoid that. But it's games like this that put the tinfoil hat community up front and center and say, look at this game, look at this guy, look what he's doing. And it gives them some validity in their arguments because it's just blatantly so bad. And especially now that the NFL is getting in bed with gambling money, and all across, I mean, how many? There's like 3 or 4 sports books that are the official sports book of the NFL.
Exactly.
So when you have all of that money flowing in, and then media companies also getting sponsored by, gambling money, I don't have a problem with it. If you want to do that, have fun, but you got to make sure that the integrity of the game now is more important than ever, because you are allowing something that if a touchdown is scored or you're preventing a team from going and scoring a touchdown, you are going to cause people to lose money, and that could have an impact on your viewership. Or if you figure out that somebody involved in the game is betting money, even if it's on themselves, you're going to cause people to be skeptical about the game, which is why they came down so hard on Calvin Ridley when it turned out he placed a bet on himself. So, if you're put up front that there's no, there's no wiggle room for any sort of betting for players on, even if they're betting on themselves, you need to make sure that your officiating is as clean as possible, because you need to make sure that everybody knows that this is a true competition, this is a true game. And I don't think that the NFL is rigging games or anything like that. I'm not a part of the tinfoil hat community.
No.
But
people will assume that. That's the problem.
But yeah, there is games like these, ref crews like these, when stuff like this happens, or when trends like this occur, you give people who argue that validity in it. So that's a problem.
It is a problem. And think about it like this, dude. So a good example is this. So I was ordering something, I was bidding on something on I'm not going to say what auction site, but a auction site. And the auction site allows sellers, because these are niche items, so the auction site allows sellers, just individual people, whether it be you, me, or anybody, Joe Blow down the street, to sell on their site. Now, when you are betting on a no reserve item and something, this item is at this price, and then all of a sudden and mind you, while this auction's going on, when it gets down to a certain point and somebody bids up, then it jumps 9 minutes and you have to wait that 9 minutes, and then it just jumps again and it jumps again. Well, I had an argument with these people about this, and I said there's no possibility this person isn't upbidding his own product. And they said, we do it, we monitor that very strictly. There's no way he's doing that. And I said, so you can monitor his cousin that lives in South Dakota and he lives in California. You can monitor his IP address and find out if he's not the one that's upbidding it, or is it, how do you monitor everybody? And it's no different when it comes to referees or players or anyone else. If you want to bet on a game, there's no possibility, unless somebody squeals on you, that they're ever going to know if you had somebody. I can have you place a bet for me, dude, and nobody would ever know it. Unless you squealed, unless you ratted me out, there's no way anybody would know that. So those are the type of scenarios that are running through people's heads right now. I'm not saying it's going on. I don't know if it is or isn't. We've already seen one case where it did kind of happen with a referee. We've seen it in the NBA, as Philip alluded to, that he was betting on his own games that he was refereeing. So we have to not dismiss it completely, because it's a valid possibility that this could be going on. Now, with Sheffers, I don't know if that's the case or not, or if he's just petty. I have no clue. The one thing I will say is it got a lot worse when betting got involved. When they started sponsoring the NFL and it went nationwide for the most part, most states allow it, Then it got worse, and it got worse, and it got worse. And it almost seems like when these games that you know for a fact that a certain team will blow out another team. They can blow them out by 30 points, 40 points, and it always seems to cover the spread. And when that goes on, and that's more often than not, then people start to think, okay, wait a minute. Is this really, similar to how they used to think about boxing all the time, and why boxing is no longer the premier thing in, contact, that type of sport. So it's, how do I say, it's something that the NFL has to look at and think, we don't want this perception because it's going to make us look really bad. And if we start looking like this and we look at it as a WWE situation instead of a real sport, then it's going to cost us ratings. It's going to cost us other sponsors. It's going to cost us a lot of things. Everything from all the way down to the parking lot costs. It will cost us. So they have to realize this can't continue this way. The defense has to be able to play the game on both sides of the ball. You can't call Snead for tugging on a guy's jersey with his fingernails for a millisecond, but then somebody can wrap their arm around a guy's neck and pull them to the ground, and that's not called. The bilateral hit shit or the tackle that we've seen during that game, he was not in front of the offensive player. The defender. He was next to him. He was actually behind him a little bit. So that it wasn't a forward progress situation, but they called it anyway.
That was so confusing. I didn't understand it at the time, and I've tried to find like another example of this, and because I thought the play was called dead, and once you call forward progress, that's it. Like, there's no reviewing of that. I didn't know that was even like a reviewable thing, because the Chiefs have been on the other end of that against the Titans.
Yep.
Where it was like it was called dead, and it's called dead because you can't say that, and I understand the justification is, well, it was called dead, so you can't penalize the guy for hypothetically he heard the whistle and just dropped the ball. Right? Like, you can't.
No.
So when the play is called dead, that's it. It's over. It's restart the 40-second clock, and we're moving on.
Exactly.
And I understand it. That's just the way the sport works. At a certain point, you do have to just end it and move on. And when forward progress is called, that's it. And I didn't know that was reviewable. I didn't know that was like I didn't know that was a situation you could find yourself in. That was so weird to me.
I have never seen it. That's my problem. I've watched football I'm old, so I've been around the game a long time, and up close and personal around that game, and I've never seen a call like that ever. So I've looked back to see if I could find one and couldn't find one. So it's amazing to me that somehow this guy knows the rule book so well, unless he's got it rolling through his freaking headset. I have no clue how he found that bullshit and came out with it. I don't know. But it was a terrible call, and it should have never happened.
Okay. Here's how we fix the situation. Here's my Q's solution. Okay? One, Sky Judge. The NFL needs to invest in a third judge, vision. I don't know what else. I don't know. Sky Judge. You need somebody who is up in a booth like the offensive and defensive coordinators are, watching the play, and when a flag is missed or flag is thrown and you kind of sort of see it, and the guy up top can just say, hey, that wasn't a flag. No, don't worry about it. Like that blindside block, right?
Yeah.
From another perspective, that ref could throw the flag because he thought they were going parallel. Sky Judge could call in and say, hey, no, they were moving up. You had bad, spot on it. And that's it, and they can pick up the flag. Or on the other side, if there's something happening sort of away from the play, like a face mask or a guy gets pulled to the ground, something like that, Sky Judge can say, hey, throw the flag, this happened over there, that's a 15-yard penalty or whatever. Whatever the case may be. Those sort of things can be done with the Sky Judge, and we could solve a lot of these problems with that. I think the second solution is that New York needs to be able to call in sort of whenever they want, and they're not allowed to do that. The New York refs are limited in what they're able to actually call in and determine, and I think freeing that up a little bit would also be beneficial for the game of football. But I think that the big thing is, getting a sky judge and then making these refs full-time employees. And if you don't want to, if you don't want to quit your other job to become a full-time ref, find somebody else, because we need people who understand the rule book to a T, like the NFL players do, and that I feel like can solve a lot of your problems. The NFL needs to stop
fucking force them to do it. So why is it that they force the players to be, to know every single rule in that book, but yet the refs don't follow it on either side of the ball?
And here's the thing: the game of football got better with TV contracts because players no longer had to be car salesmen in the off season and could focus on their craft. I think the reffing crews would get better if they didn't have to go do their side job or their main job, however they view it, and being a ref as like a secondary thing. If you pay these people to be full-time refs for the entire year, and they spend their off season, going to, maybe to camps and to continue to learn the rule book, because the rule book changes every year too. It's not necessarily a consistent thing. We've seen this for the past few years. They've changed how pass interference work, roughing the passer, like these new chop block rules. Things are changing every single year, and you can't tell me that between their other jobs that they're working, some of these people are like lawyers, like hyper-intensive jobs, and you can't tell me that they're being able to do both of these efficiently. So if you don't want to be a full-time ref, go do your other job. Bye. See ya. Get out of the NFL. Well, that's how you solve the problem.
And it's not like they're paid pennies. I mean, they're not cheerleaders. They don't get $100 a game. So for them, some of those senior refs make a lot of money. A lot of money. So in my opinion, if they want to continue to do this, they either need to be consistent on both sides of the ball, or New York needs to use those 20 guys that they have in the office per game to actually call down and say, look, you're wrong. I mean, when we had the substitute refs in during COVID, us and the Cowboys were the only two teams that got screwed, but yet they had nobody watching in New York those games. And those were the games that should have been watched the most. But yet we had refs in there that have never refed an NFL game. One guy had one game in his entire life. Didn't know the rule book, didn't know anything about the NFL rules. But yet they were out there doing it. So it has to come to a point where they either find a way of fixing this, or they're going to start losing revenue. It's going to get to that point. And I mentioned that to my guy that I deal with up there, and he understands that. I mean, it's not like he doesn't get it. They're trying to figure out a way of fixing the problem. And I said the same thing to him. I said, look, man, everybody's a fan of somebody. I said, you don't become an NFL ref unless you're a fan of the NFL. So you have to remember that. And when they're reffing from if you know that ref is from Cincinnati or Kansas City or wherever they're from, even a surrounding area where, like how we have Iowa fans, Kansas fans, Oklahoma fans, they need to really put the emphasis on them and maybe not allow them to ref those certain games. Because
that's how they do it in the World Cup.
Exactly.
In the World Cup, if you are, if it's the United States versus Germany, the refs for those games, you cannot be from the United States or Germany. You have to be from a third country. So, there are examples out there of how you can make this work. And I think the solutions are there. It's just whether or not the NFL is going to be able to use it. And it's so frustrating because the solution is pretty simple. It's basically the solution is throw money at the problem.
Yeah.
And it's an easy solution for these football teams that are alone worth multiple billions of dollars.
Well, it's not like they don't have the money to pay for it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. we've talked about this in the past, and I've made a few phone calls after that 17 week 17 game with Cincinnati last year. I knew something was going on in that game. I knew it. I seen it, and then when it happened in the playoffs, the exact same way, almost to a T against the Raiders, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. And then the NFL finally steps in. But it was almost like, and if you look at it from a tinfoil hat guy, it's like, okay, does the NFL really want Joe Burrow in the Super Bowl that badly? That's how they look at it.
Well, and what happened again with the Commanders and the Giants? They got that game was coming down to the wire, and the Terry McLaurin thing, and with his situation with the ref, and then the no pass interference call at the end of the game. Then the conversation became, well, do the other NFL owners not want Dan Snyder's team in the playoffs? So it's these sort of conversations that end up happening when the situation is this bad.
Yeah, and it's just getting worse. I mean, Pat McAfee had a show on it, I believe it was yesterday, and he just basically, he had Rap Sheet on there as well, and it didn't say. I mean, they didn't get into it too deep because I think the NFL is kind of censoring some of this stuff to a degree, and I understand. I mean, especially for Rap Sheet. Look, Pat McAfee can say whatever the hell he wants, but some of the questions that were posed, it wasn't Rap Sheet really answering them. And I understand why. Why would he jeopardize what he does and how, for a living? And he would jeopardize that by saying anything that would go against the grain.
Yeah, he does have to be diplomatic about some of his. And, I mean, reporters in general kind of have to do that if you're involved with an organization.
Correct.
You don't censor yourself, but you have to be...
You have to be somewhat diplomatic.
Yeah, you have to be diplomatic about it. You can't just ask a player, why'd you suck?
Yeah,
you have to come at it from a better angle than that.
Exactly. I mean, we've been through this because we've, interviewed players, and we know what we're supposed to say, what we're not supposed to say, what we're supposed to ask, not supposed to ask. And they give us a list, and if you want to, and there's things that we wouldn't ask anyway. Most of the things that were on that list we wouldn't have asked. It's just stupid. And people that, that are, I guess if you want to, what do you want to call them? Dredge sites, I guess, whatever. Yeah, they'd ask those questions, but we're not one of them. That's why we're able to interview players in the middle of the season when most people are not. But we still want to make sure that the point gets across without being negative or calling someone out. I understand why Rap Sheet did what he did. He's bound by his bylaws, the same as anyone else we would be if we interviewed players or spoke about certain things in a national forum, which we will be doing soon. But we have to be careful with what we say as well. Right now, it's a little unfiltered. We can kind of say what we want. We are pro team and pro players, so it's a little easier on us than it is a lot of people. I'll put it that way. Just simply because we aren't the type to, just slam players daily. I look at the stuff with Frank Clark, and he was the highest graded edge rusher against on Sunday. I mean, he played lights out Sunday. He's played lights out really all year long. He's played extremely good football. He forced that fumble. He caused that to happen. And Willie Gay fought like I've never seen anybody fight.
That's what I tweeted out. I said I've never seen a guy fight harder for a football than Willie Gay did, because he went in there. If you saw some of the close-ups, he almost gave that dude a colonoscopy with how he was reaching for that football. He was going in there, man.
Yeah, he was.
He was giving up that ball.
He was checking prostates, because I looked at it on all 22, and I'm like, holy crap, I wonder if that guy's got a swollen prostate, because Willie just checked it. It was just, he was in there. So I give, and you're right, Philip, he does look like his old self. He looks like the 2017 Frank Clark, the guy that really put it out there. And look, man, he's in the backfield so much. He put so much effort into being a good player. And I hope and pray that they bring him back next year on a different contract. By the way, I had to laugh and bring this up because somebody actually said we need to completely trash our defensive line and bring all new people in. Okay, wait a minute. I couldn't even respond to that to a degree for a minute because I had to actually comprehend and make sure I read it correctly. Because our defensive line right now is probably the shining, and them and the linebackers are the shining spot of our defense. They're playing better than they've played since 2016, if you really think about it. So, I don't know where that guy came from. I don't know if he was just drunk or if he's got a bad eye. I don't know if his glasses were cracked. I really don't know what he's not seeing during every game that we've watched this year. But our defensive line and our linebackers have been consistently great from about week 3 on.
The problem is with our defensive line. The problem is that if they don't show up, then the rest of the defense falls apart.
Well, you're going to have that when you have rookies in the backfield. So it's a chain. I mean, that's part of it. But the defensive line, for the most part, this entire year has been really good.
There's been some very good bright spots on that defensive line. Chris Jones continues to be an elite player. There's been moments where guys like Carlos Dunlap and some of the other
Carlos Dunlap every game.
It's some of the other. Colin Saunders has stepped up and has been, his big thing was he wanted to be a run stuffer, and he showed up in the pass game. I believe he had a tip ball or pass batted down last week. So there are bright spots along that line. It's that some games they just don't show up, and you want to see that sort of fixed. But I would say that this defensive line has played very well. Pretty much since right around the 49ers game.
Honestly, from about week 2, week 3 on, they started turning it on and they really didn't slow down. So I mean, they made some changes. They moved some guys around. I love when they move Chris around, from the interior to the outside because that just throws everybody off. And honestly, Carlos Dunlap, I don't care what anyone wants to say. There's not a game that goes by, not one single game, that he hasn't performed.
I mean,
he hasn't produced something.
The Chiefs are leading the league in pass deflections and or balls batted down by the defensive line, and he's the reason why.
Exactly.
I mean, everybody else gets their hand up there every once in a while, but if you look at Carlos Dunlap, he continues to get his big paw on the ball.
It seems like every game, at least one game. It seems like.
And when you're able to do that, you can force an incomplete pass on a third down. I mean, that's the drive right there. So
exactly.
Even if you're not able to get to the quarterback, being able to make somewhat of a play, making your impact on whether it's rushing the pass being thrown, maybe forcing the quarterback to escape out of the pocket, make him throw the ball off schedule. And for a lot of quarterbacks, they can't really do that, or simply just immediately getting the ball to the ground. All of these things are impact plays. You don't need to get sacks every single down to be an effective defensive lineman. So I do think that, and this is a conversation we're going to have during the offseason, that there's a lot of guys leaving on the defensive line. And, this team is once again going to go through another significant rebuild because of contracts ending and that sort of thing. So, it's funny.
The only couple I'm hoping that they bring back the majority of them because they really have stepped up. I mean, they can restructure a couple of contracts and keep these guys in place. And that's the one place that you don't want to have mistakes. You don't want to try something new. I mean, we did that. If you're going to do that, you need to bring in either veterans or you have to bring in one rookie at a time. And you can't just rebuild an entire defensive line because you're going to be really feeling the pressure that follow that year when you do that.
Yeah, I think that, I do think that Chris Jones will come back. It's funny, I hosted my first Spaces right after the game. And side note, the first person I talked to was a Texans fan who joined on, which was interesting to get their side of it. But
yeah,
I think 4 of the people sort of after that talked about the defensive line, and one of them was immediately talking about why the team should trade Chris Jones and the opportunity that the Chiefs will have by trading Chris Jones and getting draft picks. And, they brought up some good points about how Veach doesn't pay people past 30, and, he doesn't hand out a lot of big contracts. You always should trade a guy a year early than a year late. And, they're bringing up good points that, to me, generally make sense, but those rules don't apply to superstars.
No, they do not. If that was the case, then Aaron Donald would have been gone a long time ago.
Yeah, the two guys that he's paid past 30 have been Patrick Mahomes, who I know isn't 30 yet, but like his contract goes into that, and Travis Kelce. And to me, Chris Jones falls into that same category of you're dominant at your position, so we need to keep you around.
Well, he's 28 years old, so
so by extending it, because there's no way they're letting him ride out that contract next year.
Well, they just have to extend it out.
It's a $30 million cap hit for next year, and I see they're going to, if they extend him, they can ease that cap pressure off and give him some more money and extend his contract here. I see that happening. I do think at the beginning of the year there was a serious conversation you could have. You trade Tyreek Hill away. You could see like trading Chris Jones away because he's going to fall in sort of that next category. But I do not want to see this defense without Chris Jones.
No.
It's like I don't want to see this offense without Travis Kelce because there isn't that next guy yet. There's not that next elite sort of pass catcher. We don't have that elite defensive player. We've got some young guys that have looked very good. I love Nick Bolton. I'm a big middle linebacker fan, a thumper, and a guy who's flying around the football field. I think Trent McDuffie has shown a lot of talent and was I can't believe he went 21 looking back at the draft, but there's a lot of really good talent on this roster, but ultimately when you have a superstar at the position and he's your only superstar on your defense, you need to keep him around. And because he really is he's the guy. He's the guy.
Catalyst, yeah.
And I can't imagine this defense without Chris Jones. We saw the defense with the injured Chris Jones last year, and we saw that defensive line wasn't putting pressure on anybody.
No.
So, and that was with like 80% Chris Jones.
Yeah.
I don't want to see it with 0% Chris Jones.
Exactly. I mean, honestly, I don't want to see. Look, there's certain positions that you may be able to rotate in and out sometimes, but you still have to keep your core group. And we can't get used to the turnover. I should say that. Maybe that's a good way of putting it. Turnover works for certain positions, one here, one there, but it doesn't look. It's not great to turn over an entire group because if that was the case, it's similar like what you hear people say, oh, well, Patrick Mahomes will have new wide receivers every 2 years. That he will not, because that you're putting a lot of pressure on a quarterback. That yes, he is the greatest quarterback in the game right now, but that's still putting a ton of pressure on somebody to retrain wide receivers every 2 years. That's not a smart plan. Are we going to have a couple of wide receivers probably not here next year? More than likely. But you still have to keep your core guys. I think Juju's coming back. I mean, we don't have. There's no way that MVS is not coming back on his contract. Yeah, I guess there could be, but I don't think they're going to take the hit. You got guys that'll be here. We wonder about McCole Hardman, whether he'd be here or not. I can tell you this: we've noticed a change since he's not been there. Also, the same with Tony. When he wasn't in the game, we noticed a change. When you're a spread offense, you need the people out there that you can spread the ball to. And there's certain players on our team that have shined at certain times, but then other times they didn't look that great. I mean, I'm sorry, but Justin Watson has been one of those guys. There's times that he's phenomenal, and he makes a crazy grab, and then there's times that he doesn't get under the ball. He doesn't run the correct route. That is part of being in the Andy Reid system because you have to learn it, and you have to learn it fairly quickly. Problem is that we got spoiled with Tony because Tony learned it so quick. And then, of course, the tightness in his hamstring, keeping him out a few weeks, that didn't help matters much. But, it's just part of it.
I do think that, first of all, if Hardman comes back on Saturday, which Andy Reid alluded to today, that there's a good chance, that was his quote, he said there's a good chance that Hardman comes back on Saturday, that this would be the first time that the Chiefs have their entire, core wide receivers since November 6th, because various guys have missed time in between that sense. So we're looking at what, about 7 weeks, 6 weeks?
Yeah, in that range, yeah.
So that you're talking about a significant time frame there, and to be able to get all your guys back, just before the playoffs start, I think the Chiefs are looking great on the wide receiver standpoint. I will say this though, we've talked a lot about some of the bad that we've seen out of the Chiefs, or some of the maybe controversial takes that have been happening about the Chiefs over the last couple of days. I just want to point out that this team is still 11-3. It's still in the number 2 spot in the AFC, and Patrick Mahomes has continued to go full God mode. And he has the best completion percentage in NFL history with 40 or more attempts. He continues to throw the ball for more than 300 yards a game. Jerick McKinnon it looks like he's 21 again over multiple weeks, as he continues to rush the ball well, but more impressively, he continues to be productive in the pass game and actually called his shot before the game-winning touchdown in overtime. Travis Kelce and Juju Smith-Schuster continue to look like the number 1 and number 2 pass catcher on this team. So this offense is really starting to click. My problem that I have with the team is a couple of things, and turnovers, which I don't really know if I need to get that deep into it. You can't turn the ball over.
I mean,
and
that stuff will clean up.
And if you're turning the ball over, you have to force turnovers, and you're not doing that either. So you got to do one of those things. I think that by the playoffs, I do just feel like Andy Reid and the Chiefs will figure it out in terms of not turning the ball over, because you have to. Yeah. And I just feel like with Andy Reid, and this Chiefs team, I can't see them getting bounced out of the playoffs because they turned the ball over 3 times in a game.
No, I can't either. And here's a real quick stat for everybody out there. Patrick Mahomes has just joined Brady and Peyton Manning, the only 2 quarterbacks in NFL history with 4 seasons of a 66-plus completion percentage, 4,500-plus passing yards, and a 35-plus touchdown season. Now, the difference is that Mahomes has played 5 years. Peyton Manning played 14, 15 years, and Brady's on his 22nd year.
Yeah, let's see, what? It's like 16 years. He won the Super Bowl in 15, and he was drafted in 99.
Yeah, so that's right, 16 years. So let's take into consideration that nobody in the history of the 100-year history of football has done what Mahomes has done in 5 years.
Yeah, hot take alert. Patrick Mahomes is really good.
Yeah, damn good. So let's take that into consideration and not be so negative about everything, because there's always a way to fix a problem. It's not, we've always figured it out in the past, and we will figure it. Look, I've heard numerous times now, oh, well, this looks like the 18 defense again. No, it does not. The 18 defense was ranked 31st. We are not. The 18 defense didn't have the linebacker core that we have right now. They didn't have really the defensive line that we have right now. So it is not. The only difference between this defense and a top 10 defense is the secondary rookies that need to gel a little bit more.
My biggest problem with this defense is how bad they are in the red zone.
And you know what's sad? You know what's sad about that, dude? Is the first 7 games we were like top 3 in the NFL in red zone efficiency.
Yeah, which sort of gives me hope.
Yeah.
because it tells me that it's there, and I don't know. I don't know if it's a scheme thing. I don't know if it's just who we
It's a
face
lull.
because
I mean, it's a lull. We faced the hardest group in the first 7 weeks that we've faced in a long time. We're hitting that rookie lull. That
yeah,
just happens.
I don't know. I don't know if it's one of those things where you're trying to hide stuff
And that's
for
part
the
of it too.
playoffs because you know that you're 11-3. Now you've won the division. I mean, you essentially won the division after you swept the Chargers. Let's be real here.
Well,
We've
I
had
mean,
this
it
division.
was done.
We basically won the division after we beat the Chargers for the second time.
Correct.
But now mathematically you have it. So a part of me wonders if at least to some extent, not to justify or all of it, but to some extent where you're not putting your crazy packages out there nearly as much in the red zone to
We haven't
avoid
done
that.
And then, Quentin, you hit it. You hit it right. It's 100%. When we have been talking about this for years, Andy Reid is synonymous for playing vanilla offenses when he knows he's able to win and get to the playoffs with playing vanilla offenses, vanilla packages. He brings out his firepower when he absolutely has to bring it out. And that's something he's always done. Andy is not big on all the recognition and the records and this and that. He wants to get to the playoffs and win a Super Bowl. And if he can do that with not showing all of his cards through 16, 17 weeks of football, which he as obviously as not this year. I mean, last year he threw out plays because he had to. This year he hasn't really had to, and we've got new wide receivers. We don't have Tyreek Hill, and we're more efficient than we were before. We are a more efficient offense, no matter how you look at it. His numbers are phenomenal, and it's because of him and Andy, and the fact that we brought Nagy back. I'm sorry, but those three guys together are a ridiculous package. That trio is insane. I don't know if there's ever going to be and ever has been a trio like those three when it comes to two coaches and a quarterback.
Yeah, I think. I mean, when you have the best coach in the NFL, and I'm not afraid to say that after what happened in Oakland last week.
Yeah.
When you have the best coach in the NFL and the best quarterback in the NFL, a lot of your problems can be smoothed over.
Correct.
So,
I mean, you're able to look. Just like Andy said today, there's things that we have to work out. They will work them out.
And I put this when I wrote my article, the post game article. I said that there's problems, there's cracks in the foundation, but you can seal cracks in your foundation. There are solutions out there. I don't think it's not time to burn the village down. Okay,
No,
I think it's time to go back to the drawing board a little bit and figure out what the hell's going on. But we saw Patrick Mahomes went from throwing 3 interceptions to having the best completion percentage in NFL history.
Exactly.
Right, and I know it's kind of like comparing apples to oranges between the Broncos and the Houston Texans defenses, but I think the point is there that there are solutions to some of the problems that the Chiefs have, and you have the best coach in the NFL to solve these problems, and 3 weeks to figure it out. Potentially 4 if we can get the first round bye.
You're right, and here's something that I absolutely love about Mahomes is the fact that he doesn't want to take away from what makes him him, and neither does Andy. He knows he wants to be right on that edge of, I guess, aggressiveness. He balances himself now to where if this would have been a Brett Favre, like everybody compares him to Brett Favre. I understand why, because he's a gunslinger. He plays backyard football. He just does it a lot more efficiently than Brett Favre ever did because he doesn't have the interception rate.
And I think the only game you could say Patrick Mahomes was Brett Favre or those games is that Miami game from a few years ago, and last week against the Broncos. I guess 2 weeks ago against the Broncos. Yeah, when you're seeing him throw, those are the only Brett Favre games you can tell.
Yeah, if he's had 2 Brett Favre games in 5 years, but yet he's more efficient and does more with less, I'm sorry. I mean, there's no comparison to in the league. But I didn't want to make this. I want to put this very clear. I didn't want to make this a negative show. I've been pissed off since Sunday, and I had no way of letting out my aggressions because I was in a car. And that was frustrating enough. But then to come to 30 degree below shit crap weather.
Welcome to the Midwest.
Yeah. It made it worse. But I can't, at some point, I loved, look, we are always positive about everything. I cannot stand it just gets to me after a while of watching the same shit over and over and over again with this negative crap that people spit out 24/7. It's like, God, man, what is wrong in your life that you have to be so fucking unhappy about an 11-3 team and having the best quarterback in football?
There's a lot of
Girl
positives.
Scouts better. He makes people that don't even play football better at what they do in life, except for the people that bitch and complain.
Look, there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of positives come out of this. The Chiefs are like on a historic rate for third and long conversions. And this has been, and a lot of this has been you missing some of your better offensive weapons.
Yeah.
The Chiefs offense is, they're not blowing anybody out, but they're still scoring 30 plus points a game.
Highest scoring offense in football today, and it has been since week 1.
The Chiefs defense continue to have big plays by younger guys. There's a lot of positives to come out of this team,
much.
and there are some problems with this team. Like I said, I'm not going to ignore that. I'm not here to be a cheerleader, to be a rah-rah guy.
No.
But I do think after taking a minute to digest what happened and what has happened, and I do think that there is a lane to get the number 1 seed. The Chiefs, the worst the Chiefs could get is a 3 seed, and
We know that's not going to happen, but yeah.
No. But I'm just, worst case scenario is you get the 3 seed. So there's a lot of good. There's a lot of good, some bad.
And here's the great part about what you just said, Quentin. The Buffalo Bills lose a game, 1 game. That's all it takes.
And they face the Bengals.
Yes, and they face their own division.
They've got I think it's Bears, Bengals. Is it the
Miami
Patriots?
Or the Jets? Or no, maybe it is the Patriots.
They already faced the Dolphins twice.
Yeah.
They've already faced the Jets twice because they went
50-50.
50-50. Yeah, so it's the
Patriots. And look, I'm not going to say the Patriots are playing lights out football because they're not. But it's still a divisional game that you never know what's going to happen. They have 3 games. If they lose a game and we continue on our pace of winning out, we're the number 1 seed. So it's all it takes is 1 game. 1 loss on their side and us to continue on our trend, which I think we will.
I'm not holding my breath for the Patriots to beat the Bills, but like if we wake, if it happens, I'm not going to be surprised. It doesn't. No matter how bad the Patriots are at throwing laterals.
Yeah, I don't even understand that when it's a tie game. I sat there looking at that and I'm like, why?
It was so weird that you're like, is the scoreboard wrong?
Oh, I guarantee you Belichick had to go get stints put in after that shit happened. Because you got a defensive coordinator calling offensive plays, and you got these idiots out there in a tie game with no time left throwing lateral to try to win a game when it's a tie game. What is this freaking
Mac
Pop
Jones
Warner shit?
Mac Jones ate dirt, man. He got punished.
Yeah, he did. But anyway, look, I'm glad we had this show because I had to get that off my chest. I'm glad we got what you said cleared up because, look, no matter how you look at it, there's not a better kicker in football that you can go find today that will outplay Butker right now. Sorry, I have a dog barking in the background.
I think that there are some. Go back to the Butker thing. I'm gonna write an article about this.
Yeah,
after I'm done with the show. If you're listening to this via podcast, my article is done. After the show is done, I'm gonna write the article about it because I think that there are some people that just, and once again, rightfully so, right? Fan is short for fanatic. That just that have seen Butker, what he has done this year, and have seen him miss 2 potentially game-winning field goals, and have seen him fail us in Kansas City, and have freaked out about it. But I do think that looking at the numbers, it is 100% an overreaction, and that we're fine. And we're this is not. We are not the Arizona Cardinals, who I think have gone through 3 different kickers this year. We are not the Bears from a few years ago, who brought in like everybody in the metropolitan area to attempt field goals to start for their team. This is not something you can't just go out and find some dude to kick field goals for you. So
I like the way you said that. Some dude. You
yeah,
can't find, you're just not going to go out and go to your local Hy-Vee and find somebody that's just going to kick a football for you, because it's not going to happen, especially at the percentage that he's putting the ball on through the goalpost. I don't know. But anyway, look, everybody, we've been talking about this for a while. Go on our website, go on Twitter, go on Facebook. We are partnered with Foco Sports. We have got 11,000 items you can choose from. Great, one-of-a-kind things. There's so many things, from tennis shoes to all NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB licensed stuff. You can get it all. And we're running a special. If you use the code ChiefsFocus15, you get 15% off. That runs through the end of, I think, January 4th. So if you guys go on there, check it out, get a late gift, get an early gift, whatever you want to do for your favorite person in your life that loves sports, we have it. In fact, crazy thing, I had a meeting with those guys today, and we're coming up with some new concepts for some more items that will come out. And everybody will love them. But they have some of the most unique items you will ever find. Just go to our website, go to our Twitter page. It's right on our pinned tweet. You will find it. It says Foco Sports. Chiefs Focus 15, you will get what you want. And look, every football team, every NBA team, every Major League Baseball team, every hockey team is on there, and they have it all. We have it all. So that being said, I don't think we have much more. Do you, Quentin?
No, we'll have our the game's on Saturday, so we'll do a Thursday show. And that'll be about the Seahawks. And yeah, that's it.
That's it. So with that being said, make sure you give Quentin a follow. Make sure you check out his new podcast. It's doing really well. And check out Foco Sports. And don't forget the giveaway we have going on. We're giving away a Patrick Mahomes bobblehead. Retweet it. And with that, if we get to a certain amount, I think I put it on the tweet. If we get to a certain amount of retweets, we're going to throw in a signed either football or jersey. Make sure you sign up. It's free. All you have to do is follow a few people. So, retweet,
and don't worry,
like.
We won't allegedly rob a bank and not be able to give it to you.
We're not going to allegedly not. We are absolutely going to give it to you. There's no allegedly involved in it. We're not allegedly like other people that don't give things away.
Oh, jeez.
And we're not allegedly, going out and robbing Foco Sports. They're actually a partner of ours. So if you guys want some cool shit, go and find it on Foco Sports on our website. With that being said, we will talk to you guys again on Thursday. Peace out, everybody. Stay safe in the snowstorm that's coming. Apparently, it's a foot of snow and 35-degree below wind chills.
It's like 4 to 6 inches. I know you're from Nevada, so you don't know what a snow looks like.
They actually did say on a news
it's like 4 to 6 inches, but the wind is going to just dust it all back up. So,
well, I tell you, depending on which weather channel you listen to, one guy said it's going to be a blizzard, and we're going to get about a foot. And then I did hear 6 to 8 inches, unless they keep minimizing it. I did talk to another partner of ours that lives in Minnesota, and they are getting the same storm that we're getting. But because it's further up north, they're going to get a lot more snow. And
yeah, they're in Canada. I don't want you to. Yeah,
he's going to get about 24 to 36 inches of snow up there, from what he thought he heard prior. So, regardless, the wind chills will kill you. I'm cold. I'm about ready to die right now, and I'm inside of a house. So, with that being said, be safe out there. We will talk to you again on Thursday, and we will talk to you probably again on Christmas Eve. So, after that Chiefs win. Peace out, everybody. Be happy.